last. What took so long? At last, the mainstream media is looking at the data, and it finally had to come to the conclusion that, oh, yes, it's true. The United States Senate is likely to be maintained and expanded by Democrats. And the House, who knows? It may actually stay under the control of the Democrats. But you know what? We've been seeing the tea leaves for quite some time. Check this out after that win for Ryan in New York. Check this out.
Really, this could be the story of the summer politically, just in terms of setting the stage for the midterm election and for expectations. I'm talking about the special election in New York's 19th district. As you mentioned, Pat Ryan, the Democrat, has defeated Mark Molinaro, the Republican. What makes this such a significant result? Well, several things. First of all, this really is the last major special election test before November's election. And it comes after a two-month period when we have been questioning, folks have been questioning whether the political environment in this country might be changing away from the Republicans' favor and in the Democrats' direction. There have been a number of things that have been happening in the last few months. One, the generic ballot. When you ask folks in polling, which party would you like to see control Congress, Democrats or Republicans? Earlier this year, Republicans had been winning on that question. Now, it's essentially a tie when you average the polls together. So the generic ballot has moved in the Democrats' favor. There was the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. The question of whether that would motivate, get Democratic voters, Democratic aligned voters off the sidelines, motivated to vote, as Republicans already seem to be motivated to vote in this midterm election. There is some polling evidence, some indications in polling that that might be the case. Then earlier this summer, we had two other special elections. One was in Minnesota, one was in Nebraska. Both were in Republican districts. Both were in districts that went for Donald Trump. Both were won by Republicans, but the Democrats did better in each of those special elections than Joe Biden had done in those districts in 2020. So Democrats looked at that and said, hey, maybe that is a sign that there is some increased enthusiasm for Democrats in the wake of the overturning of Roe. In a midterm environment that was really strong for Republicans, this is the exact kind of district they'd have no problem flipping in a special election. If a Republican wave had already been built, a 2-point Biden district, that's the kind of thing, that's one of the first thing that goes in a political wave. And instead, what's happened tonight in this bellwether district is the Democrats have won it. And actually, Pat Ryan outperforms. Looks like he's going to perform even a little bit better in this district than Joe Biden did. And if you couple that with, and I think you mentioned this one too, reading through the results here, this 23rd district special election that was also held tonight, the circumstances here were a little bit different. The winner here, Sempolinski, is not going to be running this fall. The district's kind of being restructured. There wasn't as much that was put into this race in terms of resources and efforts. But even here, the Republicans win. The margin here is about 7 points right now. This was a district that Donald Trump carried by 12 points. So even here, in a race that a lot of money, a lot of attention, a lot of resources didn't go to, you see Democrats performing better than Joe Biden did. Again, this is simply not the pattern. I'm showing the Nebraska, Minnesota, the 23rd district, the 19th district of New York, 4 straight special elections where Democrats have clearly outperformed Joe Biden in his numbers from 2020. So we've been talking all year. Biden's popularity isn't good. The country's mood isn't good, especially when it comes to the economy. Typically, the out-of-power party does really well in midterm elections. I think we now have a strongest single piece of evidence in this 19th district special election tonight, Alicia, that in spite of all of that, I think it's worth asking questions about, can the Democrats hold on to the Senate, and even could the Democrats potentially hold on to the House this November?
Finally, the mainstream media has come around. We have to ask the question. After the dominoes fell, one after the other, we had Kansas. We had those special elections in Minnesota. We also have this election in New York. But, you know, most importantly, all we had to look at was Kansas. Look at what Kansas did. Look at what people said when they got out of voting in Kansas. Folks, this stuff is going to be a competitive race. It is for the Democrats. It is on the Democrats if they don't win it all. Because I tell you what, all the necessary structures, all the necessary inputs are there for Democrats and progressives to win it all in 2022. Do not despair, because the good news is going to be there this year in November. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.